First of all, I would like to thank you for Venerable Kushala and the International Buddhist Meditation Center for inviting me to speak again. I had such a great time speaking last time, and today I wanted to speak. The topic today is only wisdom is the way, or only wisdom is the path. And I got the title of this talk because during the New Year, it's the Vietnamese Buddhist tradition, I'm pretty sure Asian tradition as well, is we do a pilgrimage. And then every Lunar New Year, we would go out to different temples. We would visit different sites, and donate to different temples, just to visit. So a total of 10. And this year, we went to this temple in Santa Ana. 2 of them, actually, in Santa Ana. And they have on the back wall, in Chinese words, well, translated into Vietnamese is Yui Doi Song Phat, which roughly means only wisdom is your career. The career of a monk or a person who is studying the Dharma should understand that only wisdom is the path. Your ultimate goal as a monk or as anyone practicing Buddhism, it has to understand that wisdom is the only way. And so instead of saying only wisdom is your career, only wisdom is your work of life, your life work, I roughly translate it to only wisdom is the way. And then it explains it through different ways. We have to understand, before we can understand how to develop wisdom, we have to understand wisdom can only come from if your mind is completely calm. Concentration of mind is what it's called. But before we can even have concentration of mind, or our mind to be completely calm, we have to practice sila, which is understanding the moralities, the precepts. So it's the 3 pillars of enlightenment, or the 3 foundations of enlightenment. You have to have first sila, and then samadhi, and then panya. So sila is morality. It's all the precepts that you take. I take 250 precepts. The majority of the rooms in here, majority of everyone in here take around 5 precepts. It's the fundamentals. Do not kill, do not steal, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicants. And those are the foundations for us to keep our mind calm and pure. Because, for example, if we say false speech, if we say one false speech, 1 lie, then we gotta have 3 more lies to cover that 1 lie we just said. And since we had that 3 lies, we had to give 9 more lies to cover the 3 lies that we said, just to cover that 1 original lie we said. And so, if we were to keep on with our lying, or just the false speech itself, it takes that mental, it has a mental distraction on your own mind, and you won't be able to keep your mind calm and pure since you use false speech. For example, if you steal, if you steal something small, it might not be something bad, like you accidentally took a pen or something like that. But say, for example, you robbed a bank, then just with that action alone, you're going to live in constant fear. Fear of, am I going to get caught? Fear of the police knowing. Fear of all this. And from just the fear itself, it will hinder you from doing anything big. So we have to understand the precepts that the Buddha taught is just a guideline. They're not really commandments. They're more like offenses to keep us in the right path. Because each and every one of us have the potential to go from A to B, B being enlightenment. But if we keep on straying off, then the path will only get longer. And the longer it gets, the harder it gets, and you might get disappointed along the way. And so the precepts, the silas, is to help us go from point A to point B without much distraction. And so we understand, in order for us to gain wisdom, we have to have concentration of mind. In order for us to get concentration of mind, we have to practice sila. And so now we understand the 3 foundations. It goes in deeper and how to apply the Eightfold Path. Because the Eightfold Path is part of the Four Noble Truths. And the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths to be life is suffering. Not I am suffering, not we are suffering, all of us are suffering. There is suffering in this world. Because if we say, I am suffering, there is a sense of self, there is a sense of ego, there is me. And then but when we realize that there is no self, and say that in this world suffering exists equally because of these reasons, then we have to understand what are those reasons. And then the Buddha explained it very carefully in the Four Noble Truths. So life is suffering, and within what is the cause of suffering? Well, there are 8 types of suffering. Just to vaguely say it, there's wanting something that you cannot have, loving someone that they go away, hating someone they're in the same room, birth, old age, sickness, and death, and then there's suffering of the 5 skandhas: form, sensation, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. All of those is just a fancier way of saying desire is what causes us to suffer. When we love someone when they go away, it's a desire for someone. Wanting something we cannot have, it's a desire for something. Hating someone but they're in the same room, it's a desire of an attachment to that hate, to that anger. Birth, old age, sickness, and death, that's explained through the 12 links of determined origination. But what the Buddha wants us to understand is that those are the reasons why we continue to suffer, or we set up ourselves for future suffering. And then the Buddha taught on the third noble truth is that there is an ending to suffering. That if we stop the growth of these desires, then we won't suffer anymore. For example, if I was a gardener and I were to trim the grass, if trimming the grass will only temporarily make the land look good, but if I don't remove the roots, then the grass will grow back. The roots here are the exact same way as greed, anger, and ignorance. We might meditate and we might calm our mind down, just like exactly how we would trim the grass. But if we aren't careful with the roots, then eventually it will grow back. And so the Buddha taught in the third noble truth is just removing the roots. Because if we remove the roots, we won't be able, it will not grow back. And then we move on to the fourth noble truth. And in the fourth noble truth, there's 37 paths towards enlightenment. But today I'm only focusing on the Eightfold Path. And just we all understand the Eightfold Path starts with right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right concentration, and right mindfulness. But let's tweak the Eightfold Path just a little bit. We're not going to go in the direction of right understanding, right thought, right speech. We will eventually. But let's start at a different point. Let's start at right effort. Now, okay, so then you're like, how am I going to start right effort? It ties in with the 3 foundations of enlightenment. The purpose of this talk is for us to gain wisdom. We can only gain wisdom through what? Concentration of mind. And then once we can only gain concentration of mind through sila, through the precepts. So right effort here talks about effort in the precepts. We have to understand that the precept is very important. Look outside in the world right now. You would see there's a lot of hate. There is a lot of hate right now in 2016. And any news channel talks about there's a war that's going on, there's the political system that is completely falling apart. All these things, it leads to people's hate. But the hate is always there. To say that there is no hate in this world is completely nonsense. There is hate because hate comes from anger. We're human. Anger is within our mind. To say that anger is not within our mind is a false statement. We're human. Therefore, there is hatred inside our mind. There is also greed, and there's also ignorance. It's what makes us human. Because if I say I don't have any greed, I don't have any ignorance, or I don't have any anger, then at that point I would be a bodhisattva already, or an arahant, or someone that is enlightened. But since I still have this human flesh, and I'm nowhere anywhere close to enlightenment, I can honestly say that I have greed, anger, and ignorance within my own mind. And so we have to understand, there is there. But the reason why a lot of people are fearful, are hatred, is because of fear. people fear what they cannot understand, or they fear change. They don't understand the laws of impermanence. They fear change. They see everything that's how they're growing up and how things are so rapidly changing that they are fearful of the unknown. They don't know what's going on. And so once we understand how to get rid of it, the solution is to gain wisdom. And wisdom can only gain through concentration of mind. It can only gain through sila. So the effort here is taking effort in doing the silas and taking hold upon yourself accountable for all the precepts that you've taken. And it's really not that hard. For example, do not kill. Well, a lot of us don't do that anyways. We're not in a war, we're not, we don't own guns, we don't own a knife, our goal is not to try to stab someone that we know, or someone that we don't care. That's not our goal. So a lot of us, we're not killing already. We don't really kill, we don't have a rifle here to kill deers or rabbits. So what is it we have to work on? Okay, we have to work on maybe not killing a spider when we see it in our house. Or or when there's a fly, we don't use a fly swatter just to kill it. Or if you want to take it a different way, instead of killing, we learn how to preserve. We learn how to, if we go to the supermarket and we see like a turtle, and you can buy that turtle and set it free at a lake. Something small like that. It helps us build the compassion aspect of our life. Whenever we see an animal or an insect, our instinct is not to kill it anymore. When I was younger, I would see my parents, whenever my dad has a wonderful skill of catching flies. And he would catch it in midair, and then like in his hand. But then from that alone, I see that it was never his intention to kill it, the fly. Whereas my mom, whenever she sees a fly, immediately she will bring out the fly swatter. And she will swat it until it dies. And so there's two different approaches that we'll see. And just from that alone, it shows us, okay, do not kill. Something that's small, but we're practicing our silas. The second one is do not steal. Well, a lot of us aren't stealing cars, we aren't stealing from a bank, but sometimes we might have an accidental greed that arises, and there's a nice pen and we accidentally use it and we accidentally take it. Or there's something, even though it's small, but it's still a violation of silas. But now that you're more mindful of yourself, you're taking the effort. You're not putting the effort to steal anymore. It might be accidental, but once you realize it, you might return it back. You might repent from it by confessing and bowing 108 times during the repentance ceremony. No sexual misconduct. If you're married, then don't have extramarital affairs. All that. It's just little things like that, because in a marriage plays a significant role on the emotional level, at the physical level, but most importantly at the spiritual level. And in terms of marriage, in terms of husband and wife, there is a level far beyond just the physical. There is a spiritual aspect to it. And if we start to mess around the spiritual aspect of it through wrongful sex with different partners, then it takes away the spirituality of the marriage or the relationship. And that will only pollute it eventually if we do not take care of ourselves. So the more you involve yourself with different people, you take different aspects of different people, different negative aspects, and even though you don't see it, it's inside your own mind. Eventually, your involvement with different people, say for example, I'm involved with someone that's not good. Even though my intention is to help him, but over time, my involvement with him or her, it will lead to the pollution of my own mind if I don't keep my mind clear. His wordage, his thinking will start to pollute my thinking if I'm not careful. And eventually I might pick up on some patterns, some habits that he might say and he might use. And since I'm picking up on this subtle habits, and if I'm with my partner who's known me for a while, and all of a sudden I start to inject different patterns of speech, then she or he might say, oh wait, how come this person's changed? Why is this? Why is this that? You know, and then they start to have a judgmental effect to it. And they eventually will tear the relationship apart. So then it goes on with the whole spiritual aspect of it. So that's why it's very important for us to not have sexual misconduct, because sex is a very dangerous force. It's one of the most strongest, it's the force that perpetuates all living beings or all life on earth. Everything you see in this universe, or in this world, at least on earth here, falls on the basis of sex. Men and women come together to produce a child. Plants have sex. Animals have sex. Every animal or every being in this world all are perpetuated by the forces of sexual energy. And so if we're not careful with the sexual energies, it will destroy us. Because our primitive brain itself we have this thing called the reptile brain. And the sole function of this reptile brain within our own brain is just to make sure we survive, and to knows how to function the properties of sex. And so if we aren't careful with it, this primitive brain, which links us to every single animal in this world, is going to take over. And that's why we have to understand how to control the aspect of sex. So no sexual misconduct. 4, no false speech. Use your words to inspire instead of condescend. Use your words to build up instead of destroy. Use your words to praise and to honor rather than to look down and to condescend. We have to understand the words that we say has a very powerful effect on everyone. A parent, you might yell at your child, or you can encourage your child, but the words that you use to explain, or the words you use to tell other people or talk to other people, has a very powerful effect. So we have to watch what we say. And finally, the 5th is to do not drink intoxicant or do not take drugs, because those are the things that cloud our judgment. And the only way for us to gain wisdom is to have clarity, to have mindfulness, but most importantly, to have concentration of mind. And if we, take alcohol, if we take some form of substance that destroy our mindfulness, that destroy our mind, then there is no way for us to gain concentration of mind, and therefore we cannot gain wisdom. So, effort here, going back, is to take the 5 precepts and put it into practice, like dedicated practice, to make sure that you do not violate the precepts. By that alone, it goes from effort to right concentration. Right concentration in the Four Noble Truths can be linked up to concentration of mind in the 3 pillars of enlightenment. This here, right concentration is concentration of mind, and it doesn't matter what technique of meditation we use. Because for me, I use Anapana meditation, where I focus on the triangular region of my nose and be very aware of the breath that I take in. If I breathe in, I know I breathe in. If I breathe out, I know I breathe out. If I breathe in and my breath is long and steady, then I observe at that moment my breath is long and steady. If I breathe out and my breath is short and harsh, then I observe at that moment my breath is short and harsh. I don't try to regulate my breath. I don't try to control it. I just observe the natural respiration of it. And by doing so, our mind enters a stage called concentration of mind, where we observe everything that's going on within the framework of our own body, but most importantly, we observe everything that's going on within the framework of our own mind. And we realize a lot of things within our own mind. We see the laws of cause and condition. We see the laws of cause and effect. We see the cause of impermanence. That the breath I breathe in is not the same breath I breathe out. And so once we see that our body is constantly changing, then we observe everything that's going on within our own body. And once we enter right concentration, or concentration of mind, the next step is right mindfulness. Then mindfulness here, we start to see, like I said, we observe everything that's going on in our own body. So atomically, our body is constantly changing at a very rapid rate. Through that, change, we have to understand, okay, since our body is constantly changing, those who are unaware of the laws of impermanence, those are the ones who will continue to suffer. Because everything that's coming to them is just coming to them by surprise. But now that we're mindful of the laws of impermanence. We're mindful of everything that changes. And now that we realize this change, there is this constant change, then we learn how to apply the laws of impermanence. And that takes the next one, right understanding. Now that we're we understand everything that's going on. We understand this constant change. Since we are understanding this constant change, we have to learn to implement this change. And it all starts where? It all starts from our mind. Right understanding leads to right thought. Now, right thought here is putting all the right thoughts. Instead of negative, positive. And that's where the foundation of the silas goes to play. Instead of harming someone, which before we used to do consistently, now we learn how to care for someone. Instead of stealing, we learn how to give back. Instead of anger, we learn how to be more patient. Instead of greed, we learn how to be more generous. All that. So we take the foundations of the silas, the precepts, the 5 precepts, and we play it as the foundation for us to think. Everything that we do should always be in the effort of helping other people. Our actions, our thoughts should always be in caring for other people. Our thoughts and our thoughts should always be looking after. What can I do to serve other people? What can I do to help other people? Not what can I do to help myself, but what can I do to service other people? Now, if you start to think that way, then it leads to the words, right speech. Now, the right speech here goes in a way of, since your mind is always constantly thinking about other people, since your mind is constantly thinking about helping other people and involving other people and helping other people, then it affects the speech itself. Then your speech will be more kind. You won't attack them, but you learn how to help them. You learn how to massage the heart before you ask for their hand. You learn how to, whenever you're talking to someone, you're not just listening, but you're learning how to ask specific questions for them to lower their guard down so then you can help them. Because our goal as a Buddhist monk is not just to wait for someone to pass away to pray for at their funeral. Our goal is to help them in any way that we can. And we cannot help them if we don't understand them. And we cannot help them if we're not approachable ourselves. We have to learn how to lower be in a position that whoever and anyone that needs to talk to us, we can help them. Now, if we can't directly help them with every problem that they have, we can listen to key words and use that as a way to send them to a different place that they can use resources, other resources that we know or we have that we can transfer them to so then they can get help themselves. It doesn't mean that if we can't help them, we just leave them there to dry. If we cannot help them, then we find ways for other people to help them as well. And so the words that we say here is learning the right speech is not just saying right things, but learning how to ask questions, learning how to conversate, learning how to see what's going on with their own mind, asking specific questions so they can lower their guard and say specific keywords that we can use to help them. That's the right speech. And then right thought, right speech leads to right action. Now, right action here is, it follows the right speech, it follows right thought. We have to understand that the thought that we say, the thought that we have leads to the words that we say. The words that we say will lead to the right actions that we do. Now, if your thoughts are correct and positive, then your words that you say will be correct and positive, which leads to your action being correct and positive as well. Because it's not possible for you to say all these good things and have good thoughts, and then your actions will be bad. It doesn't work that way. Because it follows like a shadow. So once we understand the words that we say is correct, then the action that we do will be correct. So then if we say, I'm going to care for someone, then guess what? The action that you're going to do is that you're going to care for someone. Now, the action that it could be something small, like, oh, I see someone homeless in the street, I'm going to go to the nearest McDonald's, buy a couple of Happy Meals, a couple of burgers, a couple of fries, put them in a nice bag, and give it to them. That is a nice gesture. Or if you have more resources, oh, I see someone poor, or I see this whole block poor. Well, let me write you a check that you can hire someone to clean up the streets, and at the same time use the resource that we can to feed the homeless. Whatever that we can, it's the action that we do follows the words we say. The words we say follow the thoughts we have. So it all starts with our mind. And so going back, the words, the action that we do follows the words that we say. The words that we say follow the thoughts we have. The thoughts that we have generate from the right understanding that we come upon. The right understanding can only come from if we have right mindfulness. Right mindfulness can only come if we have right concentration, or concentration of mind. Concentration of mind can only be achieved if we have the efforts of studying and practicing the silas. So now going back, so from the sila starts, it continues to right concentration. Right concentration leads to right mindfulness. We're already halfway there to getting wisdom. Now, from right mindfulness leads to right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action. Now, we go into the better part. In the psychology of learning, there's 4 steps. As a baby, when we're born into this world, everyone who, if it's a baby, or if we're starting a new business, or if you're a freshman in school, we all start off with unconscious, incompetent. We're incompetent, and that's because it's subconsciously we're incompetent. But the 4 stages of learning tells us that anything that we do, practice it over time, we will master it. Did you know? Take one subject, learn it for a day, an hour a day, every day for 5 years, you will become a master of that topic. Any topic, study it for 1 hour a day, every single day for 5 years, you will be a master of that topic. Because we're creatures of habits. Everything that we do is all based on habits. You wake up in the morning. The first hour, I guarantee you, is a habit. You might wake up and go to the restroom immediately. You might wake up, go take a shower immediately. You might wake up to go brush your teeth immediately. You might wake up and the first thing you do is look at your phone and immediately log on to Facebook. The things we do the first hour of the day is all based on habits. It's something that we've done years over years, time over time, decades over decades. And if we do not change, then our lifestyle will be the same. But we can always change. Why? Because there's the laws of impermanence. We're changing rapidly. But if we don't continue to change and we still rely on the habits, then our habits will continually bring us the same that we see all the time. But if we start to change little bits mentally, then eventually it will change. So, going forward, we're unconscious incompetence, which leads to conscious incompetence. Now we're starting to understand, we're starting to learn something. Well, now we're starting to be conscious of it, but we're still not good enough. And then eventually, once we start to do it over time, we gain what you call conscious competence, where you're competent at what you're doing and you're conscious of it. But what we want to do, or what we have to do if we want to become very good at, or if we want to become enlightened, is we have to establish what you call unconscious competence. Is doing the things that we do so good that we don't have to think about it anymore. For example, like walking. When we were younger, when we were a little kid, or a little baby, a toddler, when we first learned how to walk, 5 minutes. When we first learned how to walk, we learn how to walk left foot, right foot, and then left foot, we fall down, we stand up, left foot, right foot, we fall down. But eventually, now, I guarantee you, 100% of us came here without thinking about walking. We all walk into this door without thinking, oh, I need to walk left, walk right, left foot, right foot. We just walked. We don't have to think about it anymore. When we first learned how to drive, it's the exact same way. Now, a lot of us, when we drive, we zone out. We're texting when we're driving. We're talking when we're driving without thinking about driving. That's what we need to be. And that leads to right livelihood, which is the last one. Right thought, right speech, right action. Action, repeated over time, becomes a habit. Habit, if continued to practice, leads to your lifestyle. The lifestyle that you have will develop your character. So right livelihood here is using the silas, the precepts, to gain concentration of mind. Concentration of mind will lead to right mindfulness. Right mindfulness will lead to right understanding. Right thought, right speech, right action. Then eventually, right livelihood. This right livelihood is taking the four fundamentals of learning and gaining unconscious competence in what you do. That means that now, since you're using the silas, the foundation of positive, by this time when you gain right livelihood, everything should be unconscious. It should be second nature to you. Whenever someone yells at you, you don't react back negatively now. At this time, someone yells at you, you just observe it and realize that what they're saying is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. If they're angry at you, it only shows that their mind right now is angry. It has nothing to do with you. So what now? Now you have to use compassion to help them. This path that the Buddha taught is for us to know that meditation is not just something that we sit down and we do for 15 minutes a day, or half an hour a day, or an hour a day. What the Buddha wants us to understand is meditation is a lifestyle. Positiveness is a lifestyle. Taking the precepts and holding up to it is a lifestyle. What we should do should be so second nature. It should be in our subconscious mind or unconscious mind that when we do it, we don't have to think about it. We already trained our mind and our body to respond positively, to do things positively, and to always respond, not react, but respond positively. Everything we do should be a response, because the response is something that we're mindful before of our actions. Our reaction is something that we're not mindful of our actions. And so that concludes the talk for today. We have to understand first, everything starts with the silas. Sila and then concentration of mind. Eventually, doing those two things, sila and concentration, you will gain wisdom. And the wisdom you can use to escape from birth, old age, sickness, and death.